And there's a fight between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allen.
Years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
They touch!
Craig even you! 1,000ths of a second he beat Boyd.
Okay, a 60
Checkered flag waving, it's over. It's Earnhardt.
1077 The Bronc and 1077thebronc.com proudly ranked the best college radio station in New Jersey by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, live from the Clarny's Public House Studios. This is NASCAR Nation. Welcome back, NASCAR fans. I'm your host, Joseph Pissarro. Before we begin today's show, remember you can follow us on Twitter at NASCAR Nation RU, and you can follow 1077 The Bronc at 1077 The Bronc FM. We have a great show today. This past weekend, NASCAR made its one and only stop in Hampton, Georgia at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, a worn-out 1.5-mile quad oval that produces slipping, sliding, and tons of great racing. I don't think I've ever had anything negative to say about Atlanta. I've been there quite a few times in person. It's just always an exciting race to watch, especially with the surface. It's very worn out. And it really challenges drivers to keep their equipment preserved, because you really want to save what you got and you don't want to overuse any of it. So a really challenging racetrack. It's a great race. And this year, glad to say, after a wreck-filled Daytona 500, plenty of cars were able to finish this year's race at Atlanta, and hopefully that'll save that budget a little bit better than what the Daytona cars were running, because they all got wrecked. On Saturday, it was a rare doubleheader for the Xfinity Series and the Camping World Truck Series as they ran at Atlanta. Kevin Harvick dominated the Xfinity race, which ran first in the afternoon, winning both stages and the race itself, and leading over three-quarters of the race in the number 98 Hunt Brothers Pizza Ford with Stewart Haas Racing as an affiliate. Kevin Harvick wins the Xfinity race. Later on in the evening, Kyle Busch dominated the Camping World Truck Series race. It looked like he was going to do the same thing, winning both stages and the race, but a caution comes out with 5 laps to go, and a miscommunication in the pits cost him the win. His pit crew was under the assumption he was going for 4 tires. He pulled out after 2 were only put on, and one of the rear left tire was not secured to the car. The changer had already began to unsecure the lug nuts, and so the tire fell off after he had gotten off of pit road. Brett Moffitt went from 3rd to 1st on an exciting restart, took the checkered flag home for, I believe, his second Camping World Truck Series victory, his first coming at Michigan last year or 2 years ago. And, of course, the big day, the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, 500 miles, that's 325 laps. Now you're probably asking, well, why is it only 325 laps when at the other 1.5 mile tracks for 500 miles it's 334? That's because technically Atlanta is a 1.54 mile track. The others are much they're actually 1.5 miles, so a little bit of math division, but that's okay. Stage 1 and 2, 85 laps apiece, with the last stage being 155 laps, nearly twice the distance. And Kyle Busch won the pole. Now, rain was in the forecast almost all weekend for Sunday. I think a lot of race fans were very skeptical as far as if they were going to get this race in. I actually did not think they were going to race this Sunday. I thought it would be a Monday night race based off the way the forecast looked. But luckily, the clouds broke. We got a chance to race, and we got to race the entire race. No rain delay. So I was very happy about that. Kyle Busch led the field to the green flag, and that was lap 1. Austin Dillon, last week's Daytona 500 winner, went to the rear of the field for an unapproved gear change before the race, and Ryan Newman, who started on the outside in second, was able to actually get the lead off of turn 1 on the first lap. On lap 5, you might have seen Alex Bowman started 18th. On lap 5, he was running 8th. He was using the high line, as were a lot of drivers, trying to really utilize that high line to pick up spots, and the low line more so to save their tires early in the run. And that's one of the really interesting things about Atlanta, is that you have so many options. If you run the high line, you're running more mileage than the guy on the inside line, but you get such a good launch off of the corner because you can get back on the throttle sooner, and you get a lot of straightaway speed, and you really pick up time. It wears out the tires pretty quick, though. So if you want to go the conservative way, you're not going to go as fast, but you're going to keep your stuff better for the long run by going down into the low line. So very interesting race. And on lap 13, Martin Truex Jr., after failing to qualify, started last. After, remember, he did not pass a pre-qualifying inspection. They did not let him take a qualifying lap. So started last, up to 13th by lap 13. On lap 19, Kyle Busch passed Ryan Newman back on the outside to take the lead, and just 2 laps later, it was Kevin Harvick, who got his first Atlanta win and has led the most laps in the last 4 Atlanta races, but has not won. He used the bottom to pass Kyle Busch, and I think a lot of people were expecting this. All weekend, people were saying, Kevin Harvick, Kevin Harvick, Kevin Harvick. Such a good car, really gets around Atlanta so well. And those statistics that I just had mentioned led the most laps in the last 4 races at Atlanta and hadn't won any of those races. In fact, prior to this weekend, only had 1 win at Atlanta, and that was his first win way back in 2001. So it's been a while for Kevin Harvick, but he's so good at Atlanta, you can't count him out. At lap 29, the Hendrick cars began to lose spots. You heard Alex Bowman up to 8th, dropping back through the field through to 18th. And Jeffrey Earnhardt, the only Earnhardt in the field this year, lost a tire, but it stayed green. Luckily, the tire did not explode. It really just went flat, and so he was able to roll it and limp it back around to pit road. Had it only been 1 lap later, he would have gotten the competition caution. That came out on lap 30. The competition caution, of course, due to the clean racing surface, as they call it, the green racing surface. Super important for those teams to really gauge out how much their tires are wearing, especially at a track like Atlanta. It is super important where the track is already eating up the tires, basically, to really get ahead and know how much your tires are going to wear. So super important that NASCAR threw this competition caution, and certainly glad they did. So everybody comes down pit road, everybody takes 4 tires and fuel. Pretty much what everybody did the entire day was just 4 tires and fuel, because you can actually go longer on a fuel run at this track than you want to stay out on the tires. So really, when you're pitting, you're not even filling up the car all the way with fuel. You're filling up the car just so that it gets full, but it's not the full tank. And of course, tires, a premium at Atlanta. You never want to leave the pits without tires at this racetrack. So everybody comes in 4 tires, fuel. The fastest stop, leader Kevin Harvick at 14.9 seconds. You might recall me saying a few weeks ago the fastest stop in the race was 16.6 seconds. It's already a pretty significant difference, considering we're only 2 weeks into this new format, with the pit crews only having 5 members, with the gas man not being able to do anything or touch anything other than the gassing the car itself. So super important, and pit stops definitely did play a role in this race. And at lap 35, Kevin Harvick leads the field back to green with Kyle Busch on the outside. Kyle Busch, though, spun his tires in second, and he dropped to the back of the top 10, and that's really important because I think that sort of hurt Kyle Busch and put him back in the dirty air and behind others, so not able to run as fast, not able to keep up with Harvick. I mean, nobody was able to keep up with Harvick, but certainly a disadvantage for Kyle Busch in starting on that outside lane. Lap 42, Martin Truex Jr., remember, he started dead last. Yeah, he's up to second now and began to chase down Kevin Harvick. And remember, those were the 2 who were fighting for the win at last year's fall event at Texas, at the AAA Texas 500, was Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick. Same shaped track, very similar track. Of course, Atlanta being more abrasive on the tires than Texas. But those 2, again, 1.5 mile tracks, don't count them out. few laps later, lap 56, Busch brothers pass Ryan Newman for third and fourth. That's Kyle and Kurt passing Newman for third and fourth. And all Stewart-Haas racing cars, all four of them, were in the top 10 at lap 56. Certainly an improvement from a year ago. It took them quite a while to get to victory lane. I believe Kevin Harvick's win at Sonoma was the first for Stewart-Haas Racing with Ford, and they really had to get it figured out. Certainly a good sign for that organization. They're leading laps, Kevin Harvick is, and you have all four of your cars in the top 10. That's great. Lap 70, everyone's saying Kevin Harvick, and this was actually very fun to listen to and to really observe this. So Kevin Harvick, when you go into the quad oval, there's a quarter-mile track, and you'll notice it on the infield grass on the front straightaway. There's 2 turns cut into the infield grass, and that's for the quarter-mile track that they race late models on and quarter midgets and whatnot in the sprint cars. So what spotters were saying was, they're listening to the engine to see when Kevin Harvick rolls out of the throttle. He was getting off of the throttle probably the earliest out of any driver, and it is really fun to listen to. If you get the chance, try and rewatch the broadcast. This was relatively early in the race, again around lap 70 when they featured this on this television broadcast. So if you get the chance, definitely try and look it up. It's very interesting and hard to explain how Kevin Harvick drives Atlanta, but he's very good at it and very successful at it, so I don't think he'll be changing that anytime soon. But he really just rolls the car into the corner, and I think that's what helps him so much at this track. He doesn't use a lot of brake. He just gets off the gas, lets it roll into the corner, nice smooth entry, and get off hard, on the throttle when you're about halfway through the corner. And so, lap 75, Clint Bowyer, Harvick's teammate, passes Martin Truex Jr. to take second. It looked like it was going to be a clean stage. No cautions, other than the competition caution, but it wasn't exactly clean. Ryan Newman was beginning to complain he was too tight, and from around the top 5, he goes into the outside wall, and the right side cowl flap just flies off because the tire blew. One of his tires just gave in, and that's a mandatory part of the car, so they had to put that piece of the car back on. Now, they got it back out and running, and he met minimum speed. He was a very competitive car early in the race, but unfortunately for Ryan Newman, that pretty much was the end of his day being competitive in the race, but he's still able to run. No caution for that. They still run green, and lap 85 comes around, the end of stage 1, and who wins but freaky fast Kevin Harvick in the number 4 Jimmy John's Ford. Kevin Harvick wins stage 1. It's his first stage win of the year. Remember, stage win is very important. You get 10 stage points that gets added to your point total. You get 1 playoff point that goes into the bank for later on when the playoffs reset and reseed. So Kevin Harvick's got all those benefits, and his teammate Clint Bowyer finished second that stage. Brad Keselowski finished third. Top 3 all blue oval Fords. Martin Truex Jr. finishes 4th. Eric Almirola in 5th, another Stewart-Haas Racing Ford. Kyle Busch 6th, and Kyle Larson 7th. Kurt Busch, the final Stewart-Haas Ford, finishes 8th, so all 4 of the Stewart-Haas cars in the top 8. Great stage for that organization. Denny Hamlin 9th. Joey Logano finishes 10th in stage 1. Now, stage 2 there wasn't as much to write on because, quite honestly, it was a very calm stage. Not much, nothing very eventful happened. In fact, the race itself was, while it was exciting to watch and fun to watch, it was a relatively uneventful race. No cars really, were damaged. I don't think anybody other than Trevor Bayne retired. I don't know if, we'll get to that. I don't want to spoil stage 3 and the rest of my show yet. So stage 2, 85 laps, and so under the caution, because remember they throw the caution between stage 1 and the beginning of stage 2. Under the caution, everybody pits. Brad Keselowski comes off pit road first, then Clint Bowyer and Martin Truex. One of those names you did not hear is Kevin Harvick. He dropped to 5th, and this became an ongoing problem with a few teams, including Truex's later in the race. The front tire changer So this year with the pit stops, in addition to only having 5 members of the pit crew rather than 6, one of the big changes is instead now NASCAR is mandating and issuing these air compression guns that pit crews need to use for their pit stops. And that's, obviously different from past years because Joe Gibbs Racing and Furniture Row Racing, and there were a few other teams, obviously had more resources and better money to, really invest and see how they could, get the best out of these pit guns. And Joe Gibbs Racing, I actually think, had phenomenal pit stops last year because of their pit guns. Almost won them a championship. It won Truex a championship. So now this year, NASCAR said, no more of that. We're going to standardize it, and we're going to issue every team their pit guns. That way we know they're all the same. They're going to be, inspected, whatnot. And so I believe this could really be a problem in the future. But Kevin Harvick's air gun for the front tire changer malfunctioned, and if it were last year, you would say, oh, that's the 4 team's fault. They didn't clean their gun. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. This year, it doesn't as much fall on that team. It falls more so on NASCAR because it's a NASCAR-issued pneumatic gun. So really, they didn't really realize what was going on during the pit stop. He was able to get out 5th, but he didn't get all the tires tight, so Kevin Harvick had to come back to pit road. They tightened the tires all the way, made sure that he was good to go, filled her up with fuel, and sent him out back onto the racetrack. Had to start at the rear of the field after winning stage 1. So lap 95, this gives Brad Keselowski the lead. Lap 95, they throw the green flag back out. Brad Keselowski leads to the green flag. Kyle Busch, that was when Kyle Busch reported that he believes he has a problem in the car, and indeed he did. The track bar mount broke loose inside the vehicle. At lap 102, Kurt Busch got the lead, trying to one-up his Stewart-Haas Racing teammate. At lap 122, and you'll notice that's a big difference right there from lap 102 to lap 122. Kurt Busch led all those laps, was very calm. But at lap 122, Brad Keselowski was really starting to chase Kurt Busch back down. And Harvick, who started about 30 laps before, was in dead last on the racetrack, moved up to 3rd. How about that? At lap 126, they begin their cycle of green flag pit stops because tires are really giving up. And actually, as that was happening, before anybody actually hit pit road, Kevin Harvick got the lead, which was super important because that makes it easier for him to cycle back out to the lead. And indeed, that is what happened. When Kyle Busch pit, surrendered the lead to Harvick, and Harvick went on and continued to dominate. It was a really calm stage, like I said, and Harvick was really running away with the show. He actually, at lap 155, there were only 16 cars of the 40 on the lead lap. And mind you, at this point in the race, nobody had retired their entry. So looking, really pretty quick race. Lap 158, Jimmy Johnson loses a rear tire, lots of damage. The tire was flapping around, all the flat rubber and steel, and so drivers came down and pit. Keselowski comes off pit road first with Harvick in second, and again, I should say that a caution did come out here. They didn't just let Jimmy Johnson spin out with a blown tire, but so they restart with just a few laps left. Keselowski with the lead leads him back to green. Kevin Harvick wasn't able to pass him. Brad Keselowski wins Stage 2. Stage 2 results, you got Brad Keselowski, and again, that's his first stage win of the year. Super important playoff point and 10 stage points. Kurt Busch, last year's Daytona 500 winner, won the first stage of this year's 500. 9 stage points for him. Then you have Kyle Busch with the broken track bar mount in 3rd. Joey Logano in 4th. Kevin Harvick in 5th. Fell back from 2nd to 5th on that restart. Starting on that outside is just not good at Atlanta. Denny Hamlin 6th, Kyle Larson 7th, Eric Almirola finished the stage 8th, Clint Bowyer in 9th, and Daniel Suarez in 10th. And again in this stage, All 4 Stewart-Haas racing cars finished inside the top 10 and got stage points. So a really successful day so far for Stewart-Haas Racing, which is super great for that organization. But you'll have to stick around to see what happens in Stage 3 and how the rest of the race played out. If you have any thoughts, we're going to have some free time on the air later. Send me a tweet at NASCAR Nation RU. Tell me what you want to talk about. We're going to talk about Denny Hamlin and his Adderall comments and how that might be brewing a rivalry in the making. Before we go, we're just going to read off an announcement we have here at 107.7 The Bronc. It's from Launch a Bronc. You can play basketball this season at the Alumni Gym. Sort of. Donate, play, and win with the Launch a Bronc program, sponsored by 107.7 The Bronc. The broadcast team will be selling mini basketballs this season at all Riders, men's, and women's home basketball games. You can purchase mini b-balls and toss them onto targets on the court after each game and win all sorts of cool prizes. All proceeds benefit the American Cancer Society and Rider University's Relay for Life. We raised over $18,000 in 6 seasons. We're shooting for $21,000 total this year. That's $3,000 more from 2017 to 2018. Launch a Bronc is presented by Sam's Club of Princeton, Applebee's Grill and Bar in Lawrenceville, Rider Athletics, and 107.7 The Bronc. While we're talking about the basketball team, I just want to send a quick shout out to them and say congratulations on winning the regular season title for the MAC championship, and they'll be up in Albany from March 1st to 5th, so check that out. They're going to be airing on ESPN3. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. 107.7 The Bronc and 107.7thebronc.com. Proudly ranked the best college radio station in New Jersey by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, live from the Clarence Public House Studios. This is NASCAR Nation. Welcome back, everybody. Before we jump back into the show, I want to remind you that you can follow 107.7 The Bronc at 1077 The Bronc FM. That's Twitter. And you can follow us on Twitter, NASCAR Nation RU. That's the letters RU. If you're just joining us, you've only missed the first part of the show, about the first half, and we've gone through stages 1 and 2 of a very exciting race that took place this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, when we're about to jump into Stage 3. Stage 3, 155 laps. Pit stops occur under the caution in between Stages 2 and Stage 3. Kurt Busch in the number 41 Monster Energy Ford gets out of pit road first in lap 178. Kurt Busch leads the field to the green flag to start the final stage of the race. Alex Bowman, who got the free pass, cut a tire on lap 181 and had to pit under green flag. A huge blow to that 88 team, who was doing really good early in the race, and just tire issue and just a lot of Camaros in general not having the best of day. But Ford certainly showing their strength up front with Kurt Busch and Brad Keselowski as they fought for the lead side by side with Kevin Harvick right behind. Drivers were notified at this point. This was lap 197. We're still, now remember, this year all you have to do is make it to the end of Stage 2. After that, the race is official, and it should rain, or should the race not be able to be finished, they can call the race official after the second stage. Drivers were notified. Rain is in the area. Rain is anywhere from a few minutes away to 30 minutes. Get whatever you can out of this run, because it's probably your last. Fortunately, that rain never came, and at lap 211, pit stops started to begin cycling through. On lap 216, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano were staying out of the pits because they truly believed, hey, rain is going to come. We're not going to pit. We're going to stay out. We're going to try our hardest to not have to pit. And so they were making a strategy call. And in fact, from the strategy call, they developed the rest of their race strategy in case the race did go green. Which obviously it did if you watched the Atlanta race. And so they're trying to stay patient, conservative, save their tires. And so they were in the top 2 spots. Harvick did cycle back around to third, which obviously for him, on the people on his strategy, which would have been 3 stops, including the one they just made. Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano are the only 2 at this point in the race who are trying to make just 2 more stops before they have to, because more time on track, less time on pit road, you're losing less time in theory to the leaders. However, at Atlanta, that theory doesn't always necessarily prove to be true, but nevertheless, they stuck to it, and that is that. Moving on, lap 246, Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano lap 249. Kyle Larson pits and begins the pit cycle. Denny Hamlin takes the lead, and Joey Logano second. Oops, I'm sorry, I missed this. Lap 226, Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano pitted 10 laps after the rest of the leaders, and that cycled Harvick around to the lead. Lap 246, they're still conserving tires. In lap 249, Kyle Larson pits. That triggered the next pit cycle for everybody on Harvick's strategy, which was making 3 stops in the last run of the race. So that puts Hamlin and Logano back out front in first and second, respectively, and 7 cars on the lead lap. Chase Elliott, their team made an audible, the number 9 team did, to join Hamlin and Logano on their strategy. So I believe at that time he was running 5th because he had already been caught and passed by Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski. Lap 266, Kevin Harvick catches Denny Hamlin on the track and passes him for the lead before he pits. That is, in my eyes, one of the most pivotal moments of the race, one of the most determining moments of the race, that Kevin Harvick was able to get past Denny Hamlin on the racetrack. That destroys Denny Hamlin's strategy and almost completely, unless there's a caution, takes him out of the picture to win. So Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano pit on lap 275. Assuming the race would stay green, that would have been their last stop. Other drivers began to pit, Keselowski, Kevin Harvick included. Hamlin did cycle back around to the lead. Harvick ran him down in, 3 laps. Took him 3 laps to go from 3 seconds back to the lead. So Kevin Harvick now out front once again with just under 30 laps to go. And things were looking okay until lap 297. Trevor Bayne blew an engine. And when I say he blew an engine, it blew up, smoke everywhere. He left an entire cloud of smoke in turn 1. Nobody could really see where they were going, and Darrell Wallace Jr. ran in the back of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. A lot of damage to the front of the 43 car, damage to the rear of the 17. Everybody came in and pit, and remember, I said, if it stayed green, Denny Hamlin definitely would have lost the race because Harvick would have just run away at that point. Luckily, they were not out of the race yet. Keselowski, Hamlin, Harvick, everybody on the lead lap pits. Everybody who was a lap down, which at that point I believe was all but maybe the top 11 or 10 cars, stayed out, took the wave around, got one of their laps back. Lap 304, Harvick took the lead on the restart, and he kept it out front. Kevin Harvick, after leading the most laps for the last 4 years and falling short, finally wins once again at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And so Kevin Harvick wins, locks himself into the playoffs. Remember, 5 important, very important playoff points, gets that win early in the season. Brad Keselowski, the last year's race winner at Atlanta, finishes 2nd. Clint Boyer finishes 3rd. Denny Hamlin 4th. Martin Truex Jr. finishes 5th, followed by Joey Logano in 6th. Kyle Busch in 7th. Kurt Busch in 8th. Kyle Larson in 9th. And rounding out the top 10, Chase Elliott. All 10 of those were 10 of only 13 drivers who finished on the lead lap. And so Kevin Harvick, following the race on his victory lap, did a number 3 salute, very reminiscent of what he did the very first time he won at Atlanta in 2001, a few weeks after the passing of Dale Earnhardt. Certainly, I got to believe for a lot of fans that these last 2 weeks, and especially a lot of people in the garage, that these last 2 weeks have been super emotional. Obviously, the number 3 car getting back to victory lane in the Daytona 500, 17 years after the loss of Dale Earnhardt, and 20 years after Dale Earnhardt won the race, and then 17 years after the loss of Dale Earnhardt, after seeing the number 3 car in victory lane, Kevin Harvick getting back to victory lane at Atlanta for the first time since that win in 2001. So a lot of sentimental moments these first few weeks. It's been pretty awesome to watch, and certainly they'll keep providing plenty of action when they go to Las Vegas next week. These guys will. So that's your race. Kevin Harvick wins the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, and I certainly, especially for Stewart-Haas Racing and Penske Racing. Now, I didn't really mention Ryan Blaney much. I believe he finished top 15, but you heard a lot of Penske names and a lot of Ford names, but what I was trying to say was a lot of Stewart-Haas Racing names, and I think this year, Ford, I don't know what they did during the offseason, but it really looks like they've found their whatever they were missing last year. I think they found it, because obviously Ford did such a great job winning all 3 stages this week. Last week won stages 1 and 2, and Ryan Blaney looked like he was going to win the race last weekend. So Ford has only lost one thing, and that was the 3rd stage of the Daytona 500. Unfortunately, I'm sure they would have liked to change that, but Ford doing a great job. I saw a lot of things out of Martin Truex Jr. that I remember seeing last year. I think last year he finished 8th in this race. This year finishes 5th, so I would definitely expect Martin Truex Jr. in that 78 team to still be very, very good at these mile-and-a-half tracks. Remember, last year he won at Las Vegas. They're going back to Las Vegas again this upcoming weekend, so I think Martin Truex Jr. definitely going to have to look at this weekend as far as who can win this race. And the Toyotas were, in general, okay. I didn't see anything great out of the Toyotas. I didn't see anything awful out of the Toyotas. But I am slightly worried about the Chevrolets. They showed good speed at the very beginning of the race, and I'm a little disappointed that Ryan Newman had that issue so early in the race, because I was really looking forward to seeing the performance of the Camaro ZL1. And I know people are like, well, the season started last weekend. Yeah, but any one of the manufacturers can go out and win a plate race because everything is so strictly standardized and the packages are all the same. All the teams bring all the same engines. There's more diversity once you get outside of the restrictor plate tracks of Daytona and Talladega, where you really have to be on your marks to be competitive at these racetracks. And so we didn't really see a whole lot of that out of the Camaros, and I'm disappointed, really, because they showed a lot of speed in the single car tests that they ran at Las Vegas and Charlotte. They showed a lot of speed, so I was a little disappointed to see that not any great results. In fact, I think the only Chevy that finished top 10 in the race was Chase Elliott. Kyle Larson in 9th and Chase Elliott in 10th were the only Chevys that really ran close to the front all day. Alex Bowman was up there early, fell back. Jimmy Johnson with problems. So we're definitely going to have to look at that Chevy Camaro ZL1, because remember, this was a 1.5 mile track. 1.5 mile tracks make up 11 races, or I think 12 this year. Or no, 11, because Charlotte gave up their spot at Las Vegas. Yeah, so I believe it still makes up 11 of the 36 weeks. But that includes a majority, including the championship race. It makes up a majority of the playoffs. So come September, the Camaros, and again, that's plenty of time, hopefully going to be super competitive because we know the Toyotas are going to be good. We know the Fords are going to be good. Now we just got to get that Chevy Camaro tuned in, and we're going to have some really fun racing. And so that's Atlanta for you. Next week, they move on to Las Vegas, but there are a few headlines I would like to talk about. The first one being the pit stops, and this actually kind of branches out. I have a few topics with the pit stops we could talk about. Pit stops, for starters, they're picking up time. If you were looking at any of the telemetry data or any of the data on TV, the pit stops were really much, and 2 seconds might not sound like a lot, but I believe the average was about 2 seconds faster on pit road for these drivers this weekend at Atlanta than it was at Daytona. So obviously a lot of practice. I think probably a lot of drivers, or a lot of teams, I should say, were focusing, hey, what are these other teams doing? How are they faster than us? Can we do that and beat them at their own game. So I think that certainly, as the year progresses, these guys will get down to a single format that they can really master, and will, get down to, I could see these guys doing like a 13.5 even with 5 guys. Not going to be fast as like the 11-second or the 12-second stops we saw last year, but still, when you're talking about last weekend, they were at 16.6 seconds, and this week they were at 14.9. That's a big improvement, almost a full 2 seconds. So for the pit crews, that's really good, and I think we'll get back to those super competitive pit stops again soon. And then the second thing I want to talk about with the pit stops is the pit gun malfunctions. I only had mentioned Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick was not the only person who had a problem during the race. Martin Truex Jr. had issues with their pit guns, and Cole Pearn and Martin Truex Jr. were very vocal about it. You can go read the article on NASCAR.com, but they were both made comments about it. They were not satisfied. They felt they had a better car than 5th place, but they felt held back because of that issue that they had with the pit gun. And again, I had mentioned this earlier. This is really something that NASCAR is going to have to look at, because it now that responsibility does not fall on the teams. It falls on NASCAR. And, it's not like just one team had an issue this week. 2 different teams had issues with the same type of gun, the same exact type of pneumatic gun. So I think that if NASCAR overlooks this, then they're being a little silly. I do have faith and confidence that they won't overlook this, that they will go in, investigate, see if maybe the team did something weird with it, or if there's anything that NASCAR has to do in the future when they issue these guns. Maybe it did fall on NASCAR, but you really do hate to see competitive cars fall out of a race by someone else's doing, especially if it's NASCAR's, because NASCAR is sanctioning this competition, so you wouldn't want to see that. The last thing I want to talk about, which has been relatively quiet, except for one part of this, and that's Denny Hamlin's mouth I'm speaking of. It has not been quiet. I want to talk about Denny Hamlin, the start to his season. Pretty good results so far this season. He's gotten some stage points, finished 3rd at Daytona, 4th this weekend. But what I want to talk about Denny Hamlin is preseason, he was on a podcast or a radio show, some live stream, and he had made a comment that a lot of drivers are taking Adderall. And Adderall is it's a drug that helps for ADHD and for a sleep disorder that the name is not just coming to me. So that comment, a lot of drivers found very offensive, because NASCAR, they do drug tests actively. Very few drivers have ever been actually pegged or actually are caught doing drugs. AJ Allmendinger being one of them, I believe in 2012. Jeremy Mayfield, I think, in like 2007 or 2008. It was a long time ago. But really, since 2012, there haven't been any drug issues in the sport, which is great. But it's still such a prominent topic when you talk about any sport. And so a lot of drivers were really upset. Following last week's Daytona 500, Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin, who finished 2nd and 3rd behind the 3 of Austin Dillon, kind of wrecked coming to the checkered flag. And Bubba Wallace had made it very clear that he felt that Denny Hamlin ran him up into the wall, and that he sort of joked around following Hamlin's comments, saying, "Oh, it was a hard hit. Might need some Adderall for that one." Denny Hamlin was not pleased. Nothing really has been announced whether they did talk or not. Supposedly they had talked and smoothed things over. But and then again, this following weekend after Atlanta, Denny Hamlin had went to Brad Keselowski in the media center and said, "Man, those Fords, they have an unfair advantage." Of course, making reference to the start of last year's playoffs when Brad Keselowski was saying that the Gibbs Toyotas have an unfair advantage. So Denny Hamlin is not making a lot of friends right now. And I know he's joking around. I know he means well. However, there are times where you don't need to joke around like that. especially with the Adderall. That's really the one that gets me. It's not a good image for the sport. It's not a good image for any driver, any team, the sport in general, like I've said. So I'm really curious to see if, him being so vocal, I'm very curious to see if that's going to get him in more trouble later down the road. Obviously, it could be a rivalry brewing between the 11 car and the 43 or the 2 car. We have to run to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on 107.7 The Bronc and 107.7thebronc.com with NASCAR Nation. 107.7 The Bronc and 107.7thebronc.com proudly ranked the best college radio station in the state of New Jersey by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, live from the Clarence Public House Studios. This is NASCAR Nation. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us, we've only got a few minutes left here with this week's episode of NASCAR Nation. We've talked about the Atlanta race, an exciting one that Kevin Harvick came out on top of, locking his spot into the playoffs. We also touched on the pit gun issues, the pit stops, as well as the Adderall comments and the other various comments that Denny Hamlin has made. This weekend, the series hits Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the deserts of Las Vegas, and I would love to be there right now because that would mean I'd be warm. And, of course, that being my number one priority right now because it's cold where I am. Thursday, March 1st, the action begins with Camping World Truck Series first practice starting at 5 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, the Camping World Truck Series will have their second practice. On Friday, March 2nd, the Monster Energy Cup Series will have practice at 2 o'clock. And remember, this is all Eastern times. This is all Eastern Standard Time. And this can all be found on Fox Sports 1 and the Fox Sports Go app. 2 o'clock, Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series practice. At 3 o'clock, Xfinity Series practice. 5 o'clock, Xfinity Series practice 2. At 6 o'clock, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series qualifies, with Monster Energy Cup Series qualifying at 7:15. And at 9 o'clock p.m., the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series Stratosphere 200, 134 laps, 201 miles, only on Fox Sports 1 and the Fox Sports Go app. And that is at night, under the lights at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Saturday, March 3rd, starting at 12 o'clock, Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series second practice, followed by NASCAR Xfinity Series qualifying at 1. At 2:30, Monster Energy Cup Series get their final practice of the weekend. And at 4 o'clock, the NASCAR Xfinity Series races the Boyd Gaming 300. That's 200 laps, 300 miles again, only on Fox Sports 1 and the Fox Sports Go app. And Sunday, March 4th, this upcoming Sunday at 3:30 p.m., Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series races the Pennzoil 400 presented by Jiffy Lube. That's 267 laps, 400.5 miles, only on Fox. This is not on Fox Sports 1, it's on Fox, and of course, the Fox Sports Go app. One of the things when first off, I think Las Vegas, I love the track, and I love the fact that they gave Las Vegas a second race. Remember, this year, Las Vegas will kick off the playoffs. I would love for it to be a night race, but as of now, it looks like it's going to be a day race just because for the majority of the NASCAR fan base, which is located on the East Coast, it would run too far into the night. It'd actually probably run into the morning here on the East Coast. So, but hey, something maybe in the future to look forward to. I'd love to see a night race at Martinsville too, but I don't want to get too distracted right now. So Las Vegas with another 1.5 mile track, one that now is more critical than ever to really learn in this race because, again, if you come back here and win in September, you move on to the next round of the playoffs. So definitely expect a lot of the guys who ran up front this weekend to run up front next weekend. Definitely, I think Kevin Harvick's going to be a threat. Brad Keselowski's got a few wins at Las Vegas. Expect him to be up front. Joey Logano's been very good at Las Vegas. The Toyotas of Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has a win here at Las Vegas. I think Kurt Busch, too, you might want to look for. And Martin Truex Jr., definitely look for Martin Truex Jr. Dominated this race a year ago, swept it, won all three stages, got maximum points, maximum playoff points for the race, and certainly is going to look to be a threat yet again this year at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And again, that's only on Fox and Fox Sports 1, as well as the Fox Sports Go app. this upcoming weekend. You can check out NASCAR.com for all the rest of the broadcast information. And thank you, everybody, for listening once again to NASCAR Nation. Remember, follow us on Twitter at NASCAR Nation RU. Tag us in your tweet. Ask us some questions. You might be on the show next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy this race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Here, and stay tuned here on 107.7 The Bronc and 107.7thebronc.com for some of the best variety in music.